Hey guys, Infidel1258 here. Today I want to answer another question from the audience. This one's around the top 4 cards from Chaos Legion that you need to have in order to climb into Diamond or Championing. A great question. I'm going to spend some time on unpacking all of the eligible Chaos Legion monsters. I'm looking at Legendaries in particular because those are really the carry cards. Now your epics and your rares and even your comments can be so powerful. They really can. And they can do so much, but I think you really, at minimum, I think the best of the best of the best has to be the Legendaries. But even if that's not entirely true, you really can't have a conversation where you choose 4 from all of Chaos Legion. You need to narrow it down. So we're doing Legendaries because those are going to be certainly the most impactful, and I think this probably needs to happen at Epic and Rare and Common also. So if you want to see those videos, let me know in the comment section below. But definitely, I think that makes sense to cover. I feel that the strongest of the strong are the Legendary. Let's get into looking at the list and see what we see. Before we do this, my name is Dwayne Cunningham. I go by Infidel1258. On this channel, we cover Splinterlands all day, every day, because it's changed my life and I think it could change yours. And these NFT cards in front of you here are part of how it could change your life, because the acquisition of these can happen. Not these ones, because these are Chaos Legion pack cards, but many cards are given away for free. Even Chaos Legion cards actually are given away for free through some of your daily and season rewards. And that accumulation of resources, it's like a portfolio of NFTs that you're going to earn for time and attention. And that's so ridiculous and revolutionary. And because of the way that they can appreciate over time, that can be really significantly financially, a huge financial boom one day. So I believe it is. I believe it will be. And I recommend you take it seriously. With that in mind, let's look at the Chaos Legendary Legendaries. And we're looking for a top 4. The ones that are going to get you the question. Before we go there, though, let's honor the questioner, DJ Bagman, who has been supporting the channel for a minute. And thank you, my dude. You've been around for a while, and you come in here and you say you got great questions regularly. I appreciate it, dude. He says, what 4 cards from Chaos Legion outside of Dr. Blight and Summoners are going to help us push and shove onto the Diamond and Champ leaderboards? I'm stacking my SPS passively and distractions are real. Dude, it's so true. Side note quickly, there's a million things to buy. It's really hard to focus in this game. You can't buy everything. If you wanted to focus down on 4 little ways to improve your deck to climb higher, I would say Legendaries from the Chaos Legion are going to be a really great investment, because 1, Chaos Legion is the newest main pack release. That means it's going to be in the Modern League for the longest period of time. That means that it's going to have access and playability across 2 leagues, not just 1, for a while. That's huge. Second of all, these are among the cheapest cards available that are really still amazing to look at. And yeah, there's a ton of things to do here. Nodes, land, cards, SPS, even DEC, and then probably 5 or 6 other ones I could quickly list off if I wanted to. But cards are one of those ways that you're going to create that ongoing, reoccurring revenue stream. So great question. Thanks, DJ Bagman. We'll definitely send some thank you your way after we're done here. So to push and shove into the Diamond and Champion board, that's where we need to make sure we're looking at not just any old level, but actually the tip top of these cards. And so what I want to do for that, I don't want to just look at these, because they're looking at level 1 BCX, and that's not what I need to see. I need to see the data for these cards that's at the max level or the diamond level, because the diamond is the champion level. And for that, I want to go over to Summoner Lab. And these are, I've put the filter on Diamond Plus. I put the filter on Legendary, and I've specifically selected Chaos Legion. And so these are all the Chaos Legion monsters that are at level 4. And here we go. We can see the abilities on them, each of them. There's a quick answer here, guys. If you're pushing at leaderboard level, at Diamond or at Champion, you need to have your Fiends. Period. Full stop. At Diamond, the Fiend becomes so much more powerful. It's crazy. Like, one more ability for nothing, for 0 mana cost, you need to have these fiends. One speed can make every difference. One demoralize can make every difference. A slow, a silence, a headwinds. These things are absolutely, you can't do without them. They're indispensable. You need them to play at the highest levels of the game, period. So that could be the end of the conversation, but that's not it. Like, I mean, I almost need to, like, you didn't mention the fiends, but we need to include the fiends in your stipulation of not Dr. Blight and not summoners. Of course you need your summoners sorted out. Of course you need, Dr. Blight's really, in my opinion, a must-have in this game, but you definitely need your fiends too. Aside from all of that, we still have tons of options here. What do we got? 4, 8, 9, 18, 20, 24 cards, I think, if I just counted correctly, minus 5 fiends. So you got 19 cards, and Dr. Blade is not on here. So 19 cards to choose from. I want 4 of them. You can look at win rates, and that's one easy thing to start the conversation with. But remember that the win rates are reflective of a very limited amount of data. And so that's not the end of the story, because, for instance, the Desert Dragon, which I like, this card I definitely like, it's only recorded 4 battles according to the data that Summoner Lab has collected. And so I like this card a lot, but this is not in my list. I think I might surprise you guys with what my list is, and I'd love to see you guys drop in a comment below with what you think I'm gonna say, or if you want to say it a different way, what you think are the ones. But in my opinion, there's some arguments here around a few items, a few cards that I want to include, and I'm going to start here, that I want to include, but I'm not going to include for reasons we'll explain. One of them, first of all, is Lyra the Dark. I think Lyra's really strong, exceptionally strong. I love the opportunity. She does a crazy amount of damage. The swiftness is so important. But here's the problem. If you don't have a strong black deck, that's just not going to be helpful. Now, yeah, she's great, but she needs a deck. You need a good black summoner. You need a solid death team, and you might not have it. And so if you don't have it, this is like immediately out of the running. For me, I use that card almost every battle. I love it. I need it. It's so powerful. That swiftness is one of the main reasons, but also the damage that it does is so important. And I think in particular, as we move forward, when we get the new dragon summoner that has the phase, I think that becomes even more important. So that's there in the back of my mind, and yet it doesn't make my list because it requires me to say you have to have a death team. The 4 cards I'm actually going to choose today are going to be ones that I feel, regardless of whether you've sorted out the team or not, you need to have these. You need to figure that you need to build that team. Lyra the Dark's great. She's not the one. Another one with the same thought in vein in mind is Adelaide Brightwing. She is amazing, and she synergizes so well with what the white team usually is, including the new Grandmaster Wraith. And so if you got a Grandmaster Wraith, if you've got like Uriel the Purifier, or for that matter, the Shield Bearer, or even Silver Shield Paladin, or they have many tanks that can use this repair, and that would love to have 1 more speed, and this immunity is so important, and Resurrect is absolutely clutch. You can do those triple Resurrect plays with the white team, and Grandmaster Wraith making that every armor a void armor. So again, this story she's amazing, but you need to have Wraith and some amazing tank, or maybe 2 or 3 different tanks, and then it becomes really absolutely, you must have it. But I would say that's in the context of if your white team's really ready. And if it's not, then she slips off the top 4. Like I said, one more for that strong consideration, but didn't make my list. 2 more really. Void Dragon, because of its speed and how I just love this thing for the mana cost. I think it's super effective and powerful. I use it in a lot of situations, and I think this is a card that is strong enough, almost without, no matter what your summoner is, that it merits being on a team. And it's effective in the wild and the modern, so I really like it. And the price point's ridiculous. However, it's not as good as the top 4. I'm going to choose one more. Legionnaire Alver, I really like this card. It's amazing. That giant killer is going to get more and more powerful as the game goes on, because you're going to get more and more of those 10 mana monsters as the game goes on. Plus the armor and the hit points. The void armor is super key. The moralize is so complementary to a lot of those rule sets, where there are 3 different rule sets that melee can strike from any position. The Legionnaire is so important in those rule sets, and it's neutral, and neutral means playable with any team, therefore it has to be mentioned. But I could go through all of this list and say every one of these cards is amazing. Let's focus in on the 4 that I really think you have to have, and why. The first thing is, I really believe that Taunt is an important part of the new meta in this game. And as a result, like, think about Dark Huan, think about Shield Bearer, think about Magnor, and let's just quickly drop all the taunties. Taunt. And I actually wonder if we're going to see more taunts. I just get a feeling we are. But every team has 1 and blue has 2. So I wouldn't, oh no, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw a double dip, right? Like, this is a reward card. It's an old reward card, right? Yep. So in the modern, every team has 1. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 1 more taunt for every team. Because adding more taunt is not necessarily broken. As you just saw, having a Wave Brood with a Kraken is something you just don't really do. I have both cards, and if you do that, it's like, it doesn't make sense, because the Kraken being in the first position attracts all the attention, and the Wave Brood, the taunt is irrelevant. And the Wave Brood is not a strong card unless you're using that taunt. So I don't feel like adding a second taunt to the teams would in any way break what the game is. I don't think Kraken and Wave Brood are compatible. I don't think they get played regularly together. And so adding 1 more to each of the teams wouldn't change much, in my opinion. But it would double how often we do see taunt, even though it wouldn't break taunt in any sort of dramatic way. And so I kind of expect that to happen. But even if it doesn't, taunt has really formed a part of the meta, especially with Shield Bearer, especially with Grandmaster Wraith, and Dark Huan also. I would say these 2 are and Slipspawn. These 3, oh man, Wave Brood is so amazing too. I love all 3 of these. I don't love Magnor. I love all 4 of these. I don't love Magnor. Kraken's amazing, but that's an old wild one now. So my point is, if taunt is that powerful, and I believe it is, and if it's going to maybe continue to be a focus in the game, and I believe it is, then I think you need to talk about triage. And so go back to Summoner Lab. I actually believe that the first 2 I want to call out here are triage monsters that I think are absolutely indispensable, must-have cards, huge win rates, successful at every level, and are going to support that taunt monster if you put that taunt monster in the rear especially. So the first one has to be Spirit Hoarder, because he's neutral and he's got that triage. Yes, he's kind of small. Yes, he does limited damage. Sure, he's slow, but the blind is really important. And you're going to see more conversations around that as we go on here. But the blind is deeply important, because the speed meta, because Conqueror Yasek's got the +2 speed, add blind to that. Wow. Because the new dragon summoner has the phase ability. Use a blind in there. Wow. So Spirit Hoarder is going to absolutely be number 1 on my top 4. You absolutely must have it. The price of it is very reasonable for what it is. I know it's almost it looks underwhelming from a stat perspective, but the triage plays into the taunt meta, and the blind plays into the speed meta. And so it fits in so many ways. Plus it's a 3 mana monster, which makes it so applicable to so many different builds. And because it's neutral and it can play with any splinter, it becomes deeply important for a lot of different reasons. So that's number 1, the must-have cards to climb and high and succeed at the highest levels in the game. Plus the win rate, very strong win rate. Again, trivia, like small amount of battles, but I can tell you from my experience, look at these, like at the lower levels, you got substantive room with 300 battles, 70% win rate in bronze, 90 battles, 62% in silver. Gold seems to have dropped off. I think people aren't using it right. I use this card a lot, and I do think it's very it's significant how often it helps me win. And so Spirit Hoarder is in my top 4, and carrying forward with the same idea around triage, Queen Mycelia has to be in the list of top 4. This card is so good. It synergizes with Obsidian, your rare tank that your rare summoner that you're almost certainly going to already have from the Chaos Legion. It provides that amplify damage, which is another kind of thing within the meta these days. Amplify damage. It leans into my lore with the Thorns damage and the amplify, which so many people do and is annoying AF. But then there's magic reflect and so on and so forth. So it's like, to me, the kit that this thing has is so complementary. It provides sustainability due to the protect and the armor that is dropping on all your allies. It's playable in Little League. It's got that triage for the taunt opportunity. The rust is going to take away some of your opponent's survivability, and that amplify damage is so important nowadays. And it's one of the reasons why Grandmaster Race is as good as he is. Plus, the green team has just a ton of different ways to send damage back, and so if you can amp it, like magic reflect from the failed summoner, you got Thorns damage from your Mylor. They have their 1 cost monster, I forget his name right now, but he is a Thorns damage dealer. So it's just, there's a ton of ways you can use that amplify damage. Plus the triage plays into the same taunt thing we talked about a minute ago, and she's gonna add so much sustainability, and she synergizes with your summoner that is from the green team. So love this card. It's absolutely imperative. And again, high win rate data, diamond, gold, every level, hugely successful at every single level, deeply powerful, absolutely meta, and relatively cheap. It's the most expensive one that we're going to talk about today. Number 2. Number 3 feels like, for me, a surprise, but I'm going to go there. Ease of the Fanged. I'm really surprised that I got here, because I got to tell you, like, there's some amazing cards. You know, we spent time talking about many of them. We didn't talk about Grum. I love that card. I don't think we talk about Uriel. I love that card. Bakjir is so functional in so many ways these days. All of these cards are amazing. But here's the problem. Iza is actually pretty nasty, and I'm only now kind of recognizing it. And it's through talking from Tales from the Cryptmancer, kind of setting me straight on the vision for what Scavenge can do in the context of having a summoner that has close range. And we know that we're getting a summoner with close range for the green team. And so for me, at the higher levels, because again, you know, maybe you won't have those epic summoners from the Rift Watchers, but highest level players who are fighting for Diamond and Champion, they will. And so Ease of the Fang for 4 mana is doing 3 damage with a stun, by the way. 4 speed and Scavenge turns this thing, I've been playing it lately, it'll have 8 or 10 hit points by the time it gets to the front. It's so crazy. If you can get 3 or 4 Scavengers in the back of your team, your support monsters, which are usually pushovers, have 8, 9, 10 hit points by the time they're in the first position. And if you can keep firing as an archery monster because of the summoner that you now have access to, that synergy is really significant. And in the same ways that I think Queen Mycelia is so important because she synergizes really well with the existing summoner that Obsidian play, I think Iza is going to become increasingly popularized through the new, I think his name is Fernheart, the green summoner. Let's quickly pull it up. Fernheart. +1 heart, +1 close range. I think you're going to just love to see some of those greenies out there. And so I actually, and I feel like this is going to surprise my viewers, Ease of the Fanged. And it's because this synergy is going to work really well. And the highest level players are going to have this card. And so that's the synergy and that's the reasoning. But I think there might have been one more point. The stun. Stun is so important. And the new green monster too, right? The new Rift Watcher green monster has, I think, let me go there. Discord. The new green monster with Rift Watchers, the Shaman, has, no, I thought it had knockout. My bad. So Still, number 3, Ease of the Fanged. And I look at all of them. Notice that all of them are low mana monsters, meaning they're playable in those Little League rule sets. And they're all relatively cheap for what they are capable of doing and for how applicable and helpful they are. That's why those are the top 3. And number 4, I don't know if this one is number 4 or if it's maybe even more important than those 3. I haven't really organized this list in my mind. I've just said these are the ones I feel are necessary. We're going to finish with Chaos Dragon. And as we said before, when we were talking about the Spirit Hoarder, that blind is so important because of the speed meta. But also this magic damage is huge. And Scattershot, we talked about Taunt repeatedly. Taunt is part of the meta, but here you go with Scattershot, you just go ahead and sidestep that. And I actually really like Scattershot. That's been something I've been learning over the last few weeks, months even. And I feel like I've said so many times on the channel before, the thing about the game is that you don't really know what's meta until you sit in the cards that are there and you start to see people play certain combinations and you recognize it and you counter it and you can't beat it. And then it's like this process of the evolution of the meta takes time. It's not like the card launches and we all just know, okay, that's going to be meta. It takes time sometimes. And I feel as though Scattershot to me is sinking in now, that it really is important, especially now that I'm seeing how often Taunt is used. And then in conjunction, when Taunt is used, Reflection Shield with Taunt is so good at controlling blast damage unless you've got a Scattershot. And so for the Dragon team, this is one of the best ones. The damage output capable with this thing is crazy. 4 damage plus your blast on either side potentially. So crazy. Speed is reasonable. Flight is great for Earthquake. Blast damage is huge. Good amount of hit points. Blind is absolutely clutch for the speed meta that we already talked about, and specifically in context of think about the Phase Dragon that's gonna come to the table, and suddenly you throw a blind on there where 15% speed or 15% reduction in your opponent's ability to hit you, and there you go. Blind is so important with that new Phase Dragon summoner, and Chaos Dragon is like a carry card. I wouldn't call it a tank because it's got that 14 mana, and Giant Killer is getting increasingly common, and therefore this guy starts to get spanked if he gets smacked by a Giant Killer. But if you can bury him in the back on those big mana matches, and guys, even at the lowest levels, Chaos Dragon is deeply important because the damage output, but also because we've been told in the last town hall that they want to increase the mana at the lowest levels of the game, the mana of each match. Yaba was saying that. So even at the lowest level, that like actually each of these cards is really good at every level. But from specifically to answer the question from that diamond or the champion sort of leaderboard conversation, these 4, in my opinion, are the ones that I think you absolutely have to have, and there's no way around it. Like the other cards here are amazing, and you probably need them too. But in terms of the 4 that I think are the most power, the most impactful, and for the reasons explained, are these ones. And of course, these other ones are really, Adelaide is too good. And if you should have a white team, and you should have Grandmaster Wraith, and you should have those taunts I talked about. And if you do, Adelaide needs to be owned. The Fiends are all must have. I really like anything with speed manipulation. Grum is going to work really well with Conqueror Yasik. So these cards are all amazing. River Helendale with the Inspire and the Resurrect. Wow, so good. Bakjiro works in so many different ways. They're all amazing. But really, for my top 4, it's these guys and the reasons explained today. Guys, thanks so much for your time and attention. Have an amazing day. Be sure to drop down below if you want to see me do the epics or the rares or the comments on this. But I definitely think these are the 4 that you need from your Chaos Legions, specifically at the legendary level. Have an amazing day. God bless.